This is Simon Lancaster. In this interview, I'm asking Simon about how to become a communication master. Simon Lancaster is a speechwriter, author, and communication expert. He has delivered several brilliant TEDx talks, including one of my favorites, Speak Like a Leader at TEDxVerona. He has also written excellent books on communication, including How to Win Minds, You're Not Human, How Words Kill, and Connect. Hi Simon, it's great to have you here on my video on my YouTube. And first question I have for you, because your book Connect is one of the best books on communication, and I firmly state that one of its chapters, Rhythm and Reasoning, is the best chapter in any communication book. And in this chapter, you described your own 6-step structure for delivering a great speech. Could you briefly explain this framework for our viewers?
I certainly could. And firstly, thanks so much for your lovely comments about the book and the chapter, which are much appreciated. It's years, or at least it's 3 years ago, I think, that I wrote the book. So it's wonderful to know the effect that it's having still. But yes, let me set out. So these are 6 super powerful rhetorical devices that anyone can use anywhere, anytime to really quickly prepare a super powerful speech on even the most absurd topic under the sun. And you can create a pretty powerful sounding argument. So it works like this. Device number 1, 3 breathless sentences. Coronavirus, cost of living crisis, conflict in the Ukraine. Sounds urgent, like you're hyperventilating, grabs people's attention. Device number 2, 3 repetitive sentences, 3 sentences where we repeat the opening clause. Is it right that we've got children leaving school with severe mental illness? Is it right that we've got people waiting years to see a doctor in the National Health Service? Is it right that we've got homeless people sleeping in the doorways of our main cities? Is that right? I don't think so. When you use repetition like that, it creates a sense of passion, of emotion. It pulls people along. Device number 3, 3 contrasting sentences where we create a kind of opposite or comparison. It makes you sound more balanced. So it may be, this is about rich and poor, black and white, old and young. The sentences might be tautologies. So we're looking to the future, not the past, working together, not against one another, thinking about what we can do, not what we can't. And this is the sound of rhythm and reasoning. Device number 4, metaphor. Metaphor is where we speak about something as something which it is not, and we create an image that plants in people's mind and will hopefully blossom and grow and spread out. But you don't want to get carried away with your metaphor. If you can taste sick in your mouth while you've said it, you've gone too far, and you need to save room for device number 5, which is exaggeration. When you go completely over the top, because we're working night and day, we're throwing everything we've got at this, and we will not sleep until we know that everyone on the planet has access to a great education. And then you end with a rhyme. Why? Because rhyme is sublime. And if it rhymes, it chimes, and rhyme doesn't cost a dime. So that is it. They're the 6 most powerful rhetorical devices. These are all tricks that date back to ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient rhetoric, and they still work today. So you find them all the time in the rhetoric of powerful politicians, your Barack Obamas, and also great business leaders, your Steve Jobs, your Elon Musks, but also as well, we can all use them like in just everyday speech when we need to make sure our messages really land.
I love this structure and I used it a couple of times. And during your TEDxVerona talk, where you shared this structure, you took a risk and decided to improvise part of your speech based on a prompt suggested by the audience. The prompt was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
My question is, what was your thinking process during those few seconds of preparation? I'm asking about how to prepare oneself for an unexpected speech.
Yep. Well, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that question before, actually, because you can see in the video, I have a couple of seconds where I've got to put my thoughts together. So the first thing you've got to get is really your line of argument. So what's the main line of argument that you've got to go for here? And for me, I think some of the most powerful arguments that you can make are appeals to morality. So you find what's the moral appeal that is going to work on this issue with this audience at this point of time. So when they say Trump is a great president, obviously an appeal to honesty and truth is not going to work in respect of Donald Trump. It's just not. So you're like, what? Well, what is the virtue that I could appeal to here? And so straight away, I thought strength, and this is there's very rarely an absolute right or wrong. There's only ever different perspectives, different ways of looking at someone. And I thought, yes, Donald Trump has many weaknesses, but you can't deny that the guy is strong, and even to this day, he's strong, undeniably. For 8 years, 9 years, he's been subject to the most sustained assaults from the media, from the judiciary, from the political establishment. And as soon as I've got that, my line of argument, then the words just kind of write themselves. And you're then kind of like, so you just have your three breathless sentences, your three repetitive sentences, but they're all making this central point really about the fact that what do you want? You want a strong leader or you want a weak leader? You want someone who's going to stand up for you or someone who's going to, shy away when the going gets tough?
In your book, you explained that while preparing for Speak Like a Leader speech, you used visualization techniques, imagining yourself on stage and delivering the speech as planned. What else was crucial in your preparation process?
Memorizing the speech. The positive visualization was really, really important. And any of your listeners or your viewers who struggle with nerves, as most people who are human beings do struggle with nerves when it comes to those big speeches, then I cannot recommend the power of positive visual. You're not doing it for the first time. But the other technique, which is really helpful, is memorization, which you obviously have to get right in a TEDx talk because they're very strict that you can't take notes in. You're not allowed to stand there and read a speech. So memorizing the speech. And what I did there was beautiful, actually. Me and my wife, we've got a flat in London. But we actually live out in Wales. We've got a house in the beautiful countryside, National Park, the Brecon Beacons National Park. We went to a hotel, had lunch in this hotel, and then we went for a walk around the country garden. And while we were going for a walk around the country garden, I was reading the speech. And while I'm reading the speech, I'm seeing the scenery all around me. And then I just remembered the speech according to that walk. And still to this day, like it's now 8 years ago that I delivered that TEDx talk, but I can still visualize like, oh, I'm walking down that muddy patch now and I'm just coming down to the river and, I'm going under this tree whilst I'm like, as John F. Kennedy said, and as Bill Clinton said, I can still visualize everything. So they had this ancient story about there was a fire at a wedding and they needed to find out who'd been at the wedding and they could remember precisely who'd been there because they could remember everyone's places. So you remember by places and it's a good technique. Other people might do it like you think of your speech around your house or something like that. But I thought my house is too boring. I want a nice walk around the country estate. It was gorgeous. So then I'm here in the river and I'm seeing the trees and smelling the flowers.
A brilliant technique. But you've given a few brilliant TEDx talks, and one of them went viral with 4.5 million views to date. However, your other two talks, while still successful with thousands of views and brilliant as well, have something like 20 times fewer views. Have you identified what didn't resonate as much in your two latest speeches compared to your remarkable Speak Like a Leader talk?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what makes a hit? It's the magic formula, and there's so many different things that determine what works and what doesn't. There's something about, I mean, all of the algorithms, who knows how they work, how many people click on the first hour and all of this. I mean, I think there are a few factors. I think the speak like a leader, how to speak like a leader, this is speaking to a need that millions of people around the world have. So it's got 4.5 million views. So you're giving people what they want. A lot of people are going to Google how to speak like a leader and they'll come to my TEDx talk. So I think there's something about thinking about your audience and what they need. I think there's another thing about authenticity. And I think in my second speech, I had some coaching actually from a good friend who's an actor. And he kept saying to me, slow down, you're speaking too fast, you're speaking too fast. And so I slowed it down and I slowed it down and I slowed it down. And I got to be honest, I was sending myself to sleep. I wasn't speaking with my normal passion and energy, which I just do. This is me, the me that you're seeing now. This is me when I'm chatting with my kids, when I'm chatting with my wife, when I'm chatting with friends over. Got to speak really, really slowly. And I think you can wind up looking like you're on tranquilizers, actually. And it's a problem with business speeches. I think be yourself. Good advice always. So I think that was the problem with the second one. The third one was the art of spin, and the art of spin. And I was speaking about metaphors of dehumanization. And this it is an issue that is incredibly important to me. Like personally, I believe it's one of the most important issues actually around one of the reasons we have such inequality in the world is because of the way that we pigeonhole people, we dehumanize people. We speak very merrily about a swarm of refugees. We speak about them scurrying over, scuttling into our country. We speak about immigration camps as the Calais jungle, and we do so without thinking. And this shapes the way that people then think, feel, and act about it. And people don't like being confronted by their dark side. And they don't like, and it's the opposite of my speak like a leader one, actually, whereas speak like a leader is aspirational. My one on the art of spin is really about the dark arts of spin. No less important. And for me, it's actually more important, but people don't like hearing about bad shit. They just really don't like hearing about it. And I think that's the trouble with that one. But having said that, those people that have engaged with that talk and the book that I wrote also at the same time as I did that TEDx talk, a book called You Are Not Human, How Words Kill. I know that people that have engaged with it, they care about it really deeply. They're like, I read that book, it completely changed my life, I now see this everywhere. And I wrote this at a time when, political discourse was really screwed up. Brexit we had in the UK, you had Trump in the US. I mean, it's not to make out it's any less screwed up now. We've got the far right have just won in France yesterday. Here in the UK, Nigel Farage used to be considered on the far right. He's now considered just centre right, and that's the way that discourse goes. And of course, Trump's likely to become president again. But this is negative stuff, and people don't like hearing about the negative stuff. So that's my diagnosis. But I'm interested, what's your diagnosis? If you've watched all three, what do you think? You might be better placed to judge as an
Uh,
audience member.
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to diagnose it, but from my perspective, Speak Like a Leader was a brilliant talk, and it made a great it made a great speech. The way how you improvised with Donald Trump, that was something remarkable, and it was just way above the average of TEDx talks. And why those others two didn't resonate, I have no idea. I have no idea. I still find them really insightful, really helpful. So I strongly recommend everyone to watch them, all three of them.
You're very kind. I think it's interesting because I think that improv bit, that was the mad moment. That was the moment of jeopardy, wasn't it? When anything could have happened. I could have shat my pants. I could have, you know, anything could have happened. And yeah. And there's something in there. I think sometimes in speeches you've got to take a risk. Um,
Exactly.
mm,
That's the risk. But we talked about, Simon talked about public discourse, and you keep saying that metaphor is an atomic bomb in communication
yeah,
and the most powerful tool to persuade, as I interpret your words.
yeah.
And in your TEDx talks and books, you refer to many famous metaphors like college angle, financial storm, Arab Spring. What new metaphors do you currently see in public discourse that are changing reality and we should be careful about them?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, a lot of the same metaphors that I've written about in books are still there. They actually don't change. The idea, for instance, that refugees are vermin. This is a metaphor that has been used dating all the way back to ancient Rome. And so it's still there today, as ever it was. The idea, as I mean, all of those metaphors of dehumanization, the idea that women are bitches you find all over the place, that black people are apes or simian. You see, in so racist discourse, sexist discourse is the same as ever it was, you know, and yet people have the same go-to imagery. I think one metaphor, and one which is really worth exploring, because here in the UK, I rather suspect that over the next few years, there will be a debate about assisted dying. Um, that at the moment, one problem that you have this big political problem and social problem around the world today. You have an aging population, a population that's living much longer, but also they're sick for much longer, which creates consequences for all sorts of people. The state in terms of medical costs, but also families in terms of care costs. And I think this is one where politicians are desperate to make a move towards encouraging assisted dying. In some countries, of course, they've gone there. And countries like, of course, Switzerland, but also the Netherlands, I think over the last couple of years. And now I think it's something like, is it 5 or 6% of all deaths in the Netherlands are assisted deaths? And I think that's one where we need to be very careful about the discourse, because people who are seeking to justify this will speak about human beings as if they are in a vegetative state, or they'll speak about them as a burden, or they'll speak about the time bomb that is awaiting us. And that's a debate where over the next few years, I'm going to be watching language particularly carefully. But you see this in all sorts of areas. One other area which I think is very interesting is the language that we use to talk, the metaphors we use to talk about AI, which is obviously a big issue all around the world. And um, I mean, the negative metaphor that you've got there is the idea of this as AI as a Terminator, basically, as a droid, an unfeeling droid that will destroy humanity. Those companies that are looking to promote AI will personify it. So they'll speak about it as a person, which has been done with technology through the ages. So one of the breakthroughs with the car, when the car was seen as scary, was the personification, that it was designed to look like a face. So you had the eyes as the headlamps, and then the nose was the radiator, and so on like that. And likewise with things like the Mac. When the Mac was designed, Steve Jobs was very keen to ensure that it was seen as a person, that it would speak to you on stage. So during the launch of Mac, he had the Mac speak for herself. And I think we'll see that with that AI, and we see it with things like Google Bard, Microsoft Copilot, Amazon's Alexa. And so the personification of AI is also one that I'm going to be watching with interest.
Great. Let's switch to rhetoric and communication more. If you could make a list of the most powerful rhetorical tools, what would be your top five, excluding metaphor, as I see this is your favorite one?
Well, I think the six that I
Okay.
outlined earlier, they are my top six rhetorical devices. They're the most powerful ones that you can use.
But which one? Which tools do you choose for top six rhetorical tools?
Yeah, no, I think that my answer is the three breathless
Oh,
sentences, three
okay.
repeated
So this one.
sentences,
Okay.
and the metaphor. They'd be my six go-to. If I have no time on a speech and someone just sends me like a load of prose and says, "Can you just sprinkle your fairy dust on it?" You can do a lot worse than just going through there and thinking, right, I need to make this sound more urgent, so let's make those sentences breathless. Need to build up some energy here, and so
Yeah.
let's have the repetitive sentences and so on like that. They're my six favorite. They haven't
Okay.
changed. They're still the same. They're still the same as they were at Verona. They are the best ones.
Now I got it. Sorry. Now I got it. Uh, what's the best source to learn rhetoric from?
There's no question about it at all. I mean, it's got to be my books and my TEDx talks.
I confirm. And your T Talks, right? Let's mention T Talks, your fabulous short videos you spread on the social media.
Indeed. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying them. So this is a little idea I've had that I'm just pursuing at the moment, where every week I release a couple of videos on social media, where I will set out a different way to talk about tea using a different rhetorical device. And so, for instance, some of the ones that we've covered so far have been ones like anti-metaboly, which is like a phrase reversal. So you play the phrase forward and then you play the phrase backward. So it's like an ABBA structure. So thinking about that in the context of tea, you would say tea for two and two for tea. That's a nice example of that particular rhetorical device. But that rhetorical device is the same device that John F. Kennedy used when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Or in the context of football, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. There's also, so it sounds like real profound wisdom, where it's not, it's just rhetoric, really. I love that one.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed. This is rhetoric.
indeed.
What advice do you have for young leaders who want to master their communication skills? What first steps should they take to become to become master of communication?
Keep practicing. Just keep practicing. And the more you practice, the more comfortable you will get doing it. And just start small. Start with really small opportunities to present yourself. So even if it's just to a couple of people, to a couple of friends, um, craft it, and get your feedback and then build out and move forward like that. Don't go straight in big, just start small and keep developing yourself every year. I do with my clients that have been public speaking for ages. I urge them every year they should try something they've not done before. Challenge yourself in some way, you know. And it's even when, I mean, in particular, when I'm 51 now and I've been doing this for a long while, and I still try and challenge myself with a big speech challenge, something I've not done before. So this year, I've agreed to do something I've never done before, where I'm doing a speech where I'm going to play piano during the speech as well. So I'm going to demonstrate the rhetorical devices we've talked about, but with reference to songs. And showing how they've been used in music over the years as well. And this is something, at the moment, I'm feeling pretty nervous about it, but that's good because it's then like, it's doing something a little bit different. And who knows, maybe I'll become a rock star now. This is my long-standing dream anyway. So we shall see.
You're already, Simon, a rock star of communication. Let's admit it. But what communication titans do you admire the most?
The people that are giving speeches right now that I admire. I've got to say, and I don't want anyone to judge me. My politics, neither here nor there. But Trump is not my politics. But I admire the way he is still going. And like I said, this is someone he's had everything thrown at him, and I admire the way he's still going. Here in the UK, I admire Jeremy Corbyn, who's former Labour Party leader here, but he was then thrown out of the Labour Party. And he was banned from standing. And he's standing now in Islington North, and he's still going. These people that are just able to like withstand the most intense personal criticism that you can possibly imagine, and they still keep going. I have huge admiration for them. I mean, for God's sake, literally a few weeks ago in court, people were talking about, the way that Donald Trump has sex. And he's, I mean, it's just shameless. And there's something about that I find hugely admirable. So anyone who shows courage in their communication, I'm picking like big high profile political examples, but equally, when people come out on LinkedIn, I had a colleague come out on, one of my peers came out on LinkedIn the other week, and she just said she was struggling with her mental health at the moment, and she was taking time out. And, she wasn't going to be on social media for a couple of months. And she recorded a little video explaining this to her friends. And this isn't someone standing to be president. And I tell you what, I watched that and I just thought, respect, huge respect to you for doing that. And so you get it at a big level, you get it at the small level, but I think for me it's courage really and communication. That's what I really like. I can't stand people who are just wishy-washy and bland, and they try to be all things to all people. So I'm not very impressed. We've got an election in the UK at the moment, and neither of the candidates, the lead candidates, are showing any courage at all. Actually, they're coming out with platitudes and universal truths that are just going to appeal to everyone. Neither of them, for me, are showing the kind of courage that you should have if you want to be a real leader and really succeed at the top. Disappointing.
Now, Simon, I would like to ask you a couple of short questions where you choose between two options. Can we do it?
Of course.
Okay. Cicero or Demosthenes?
Cicero.
Metaphor or analogy?
Metaphor.
Polysyndeton or asyndeton?
Asyndeton.
Antithesis or anadiplosis?
Oh, antithesis.
Humor or a story?
Humor.
Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement or Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech?
Oh, ouch. Steve Jobs, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Presentation with slides or without slides?
Never with slides. Never. Yeah.
An audience of 1,000 people or an audience of 10 people?
Oh, 1,000 easily.
Learning the speech by heart or delivering it after only a couple of rehearsals?
By heart, always. Got to come from the heart.
Okay, the last question. What advice in a form of a one-liner or a soundbite would you give? Something short enough to be remembered, yet powerful enough to be valuable for anyone aiming to master communication skills? Do you have such kind of a soundbite to be remembered?
Speak truth.
Speak truth. Great one. I love it. Great. Thank you, Simon. It was a great pleasure to talk to you.
Fantastic. It's been really fun. Thank you so much. And thank you for all your kind words about my books and TED Talks as well. Very kind.
Thank you. Thank you once again.